Verse 662. Eternity and non-eternity, the made and not made, this world and that world, all these and other ideas belong to materialism. So this is the last of a short sequence of verses to do with materialism. And materialism is about taking our emotional cue from the world, or what is essentially our understanding of the world. And as enlightenment practitioners, this is something that we don't want to do. We find our own happiness within ourselves, deep within ourselves, deeper than our own psychology even, because our body and our psychology are also part of the world. They're part of this so-called external world. So we don't want to take our cue from any of this. It's rather like being in a dream. When you're in a dream, you have the possibility of creating anything. You have the possibility of being ecstatically happy, because it is just you and your consciousness. We should be having dreams where we're flying through the air in glorious bliss, or whatever, perhaps in harmonious loving rapture with cosmic Buddhas or other beings of what we could describe as divine nature. But what do we dream about? We dream about berating ourselves for forgetting to put on our pants, and now we find ourselves in the high street, and how are we going to get home without anybody noticing, or whatever. Much worse than that, probably. Night terrors and so on. And yet, with dream we can acknowledge that all this is created by the mind, but still allow ourselves to get sucked into it. As enlightenment practitioners, though, we realize there are no limits to our potential ecstasy, our potential happiness. In the terms of the sutra, we're encouraged to realize once again mind itself, mind with a capital M. But I'm more and more inclined to understand this as happiness itself, happiness with a capital H. We're not talking about just a happy mood here, although if you can change a bad mood into a happy mood, that's pretty good going. But really, we want independence from all our moods, both whether they're happy or not. We're looking for this Brahma-like equanimity. So what have we got in this verse? This verse is actually about the process of enlightenment practice. It is about shifting from taking our cue from the world to realizing our innate freedom from the world. So this first phrase, eternity and non-eternity. We think of this world as something that's been going on since the beginning of time, and will carry on in one shape or form well into the future. This is the world we keep coming back to when we wake up in the morning. It's always there. We take our cue from it. But as enlightenment practitioners, once we realize how this world is mind created, mind with a small m, Just as our dreams are mind created, we can come back to happiness itself. We take away eternity from the world and realize its spontaneous nature. We realize non-eternity. We realize the non-eternal nature of the world. But this is still described as materialism. In other words, we shouldn't even be bothered about the world at all. We realize the world isn't as we believed it to be. We realize that its nature is such and such after all, and then we forget about it. It's like seeing the nature of a magic trick. The magic trick, when you experience it as the conjurer intended, has you scratching your head in amazement. But then when you see how the trick's done, it loses all its wonder. Very clever, but we can forget about it. We forget about it then. It's like the mirage in the desert. There's the oasis, there's the water, let's head for it. It becomes the object of your focus and of your intentions. When you realize it's a mirage, then you just forget about it. It's of no more consequence. And it's the same with the world. Once you realize its true nature, you forget about it. So we're not interested in the world at all, either in its illusory promise or in its true nature, because we come back to the happiness of pure being. The made and not made. This is another way of looking at it. It's another way of giving substance to the illusion of the world. Eternity was about giving it a history. Made and not made is about giving it substance in terms of saying everything's made up of atoms. That mountain over there is made up of atoms. It's made up of lots of different layers, lots of different minerals, which have been created by particular forces, and so on. Is this true of the mountain in the dream? Well, you might give the same story if you're talking about the mountain in your dream. But it isn't made up of atoms, it isn't made up of particular minerals, it isn't made up of anything. So again, we realize the world isn't how we believe it to be. We realize that the world is actually of an insubstantial nature. But this is still materialism. So then we stop taking any notice of the world in terms of taking our cue from it. I say we don't take any notice of it. We have to take notice of it in terms of getting on with things, but we don't take any notice of it in terms of something which determines our innermost happiness, our innermost happiness. This world and that world. And this is even when we understand all of this. This world and that world. This is when we move from samsara to nirvana. Samsara's one world and nirvana's another. But we don't even get into this way of thinking. We're not rejecting one world for another world. We're just not interested in any world, because this is materialism. So, we are completely free. We are essentially completely free to be as happy as we can be.